give us the teaching of Marcus Garvey.
Peace and love, family. We are here at the Black Press Box Media event. Today's topic will be urban gardens and their benefit or detriment to the black community here in Buffalo. Here with us we have Doretha Franklin, candidate for University District Council, and Taniko Simmons, candidate for Masson District Council. So, like I said, the topic will be urban gardens. Basically, there's a lot of different groups around the city that are doing gardens in open spaces. Some of these vacant lots and things like that have been turned into urban gardens. Some of the produce is being sold, some of it's not, different things. So we're going to try and get into some of those topics today here with the Black Press Box. So, which one of you ladies would like to start?
Well, I'll start. I'm Taniko Simmons. Thank you for welcoming me here to the Black Press Box. This is a very important conversation that we have to have here on the East Side, because we are a part of a cancer cluster. And what that means is that you have an extraordinarily amount of people who are being diagnosed in cancer that is higher than normal rates. So that means that there are environmental factors that are playing a role in this increased cancer diagnosis. We have increased autoimmune deficiency, other issues with our autoimmune deficiencies, as well as ADHD, aka lead poisoning. So when we are discussing these environmental factors, we have got to notice that a lot of urban farms have been popping up in our community. And yes, we do promote growing our own food, but we want to make sure that we are doing so responsibly, and we want to examine the risk of urban gardening, and we want to do our very best to minimize those risks.
All right. Ms. Frank?
Urban gardening is a good idea. However, when you do it, you have to understand the importance of not only testing soil, but knowing how to garden in itself. I mean, a lot of us have been taught how, but some of us don't know how to clean the soil. Some of us doesn't understand how big your bed should be when you're doing the gardening. And then we also have like groups that's out there that is promoting and saying you can sell these products into your corner stores, and it's not healthy. It's contaminated vegetables. So we need to understand the gist of it all before we start doing things that we're putting on our table for us to eat, because those are the things that are making us sick.
Okay, very good. So the first question on the table is the produce that's coming from these urban gardens. Have you found that they're being sold in the city? Where have you found them to be sold?
Yes. You have, Fresh Fix is selling them. They're selling them to, they're not selling them, they're giving them away at our block club meetings. You have places like the hospitals that are promoting the healthy eating, which are putting the vegetables in the grocery stores. Not in the grocery stores, in the corner stores. But let's not be mistaken. There are some vegetables in the grocery stores. You have to pay attention when they say local. When it says local produce, they're getting it from urban farms.
Okay. Did you have anything to add to that as far as it being actually sold in the city?
I know that they've been sold at the farmers markets, the Broadway market, as well as there's another place online that is promoting local produce. So what you always want to do when you see the term local produce is you want to ask specifically where these fruits and vegetables are being grown. If they're being, if this is produce from these urban gardens, which are also being certified organic, I would highly recommend that you do not eat off of any fruits or vegetables that are grown off brownfields. And brownfields is soil that was previously developed. It's called a brownfield because the material that they use to erect the buildings, from the pipes to the paint, to the cement, to the shingles, to the paint, all of these items are toxic as for human consumption. And we have older houses and older buildings. So when this land is previously developed and you have over 100 years of toxic contaminants being inhabiting this soil, it's not something that you can just instantly, start gardening and providing this produce. People need to understand the dangers. People need to be able to have the choice. Now, if you choose to eat from these urban gardens, that is your choice, but that is not something that we feel should be pressed upon us by those who are benefiting from the sale of said produce.
Okay, so that outlines that we definitely have some of this produce being sold in the city. We know that some of the land that they're using is contaminated, Sister Nika called it brownfields. So definitely go look up that term and get the education on that. So now, what other ways what can we expect from you if you get elected to help deal with testing and education? So finding out what land is bad and educating the public on that. How would you address that?
I would always come in as all the land is bad, because Buffalo has been an industrialized city. So I would recommend testing before anyone plants anything, whether it's in their garden, whether they buy a lot and they decide to turn it into a garden. You test. You have to test. That will be a main requirement. And it wouldn't be, the testing that would be recommended is outside testing, not testing from people that have a monetary gain from any of these urban gardens.
Gotcha. Okay, and Sister Tika, what do you have? I know you had something to say specifically with the testing and who to have do that and how it can be done. So, if you're elected, what would be your plan to test and educate the public?
Well, yes, I'll piggyback on what Ms. Franklin said, but I would make sure that the testing is done. It's done twice a year prior to the season, and at the end of the season, that these soil tests are on site, that you can actually, if go to these sites. I propose that these urban gardens, that they are required to be registered, and that registration process will include us testing through a third party, and we want to label or give this produce a name or a label so that people can actually have that choice. But information is power, so that's what we want to make sure. And you can always, and with the numbers, you can trace back the produce to the garden, and then you can check out their their testing and look at what's in the soil before you decide that you'd like to partake in eating that produce. Because for women, lead stays in our body. It actually leaches itself to our bones. So when you're pregnant, that lead is then going into your baby. So you have babies who are being born with lead poisoning, and that may explain the high mortality rate that we have over here on the east side of Buffalo. But without the testing requirements and the data, that's something that we won't know. So that's why that's definitely something that we collectively are going to push, Ms. Franklin and I.
All right.
I think that's a wonderful idea, because it's kind of like when you go into the restaurant, you know what that restaurant is rated as before you go. You see the reviews of it. So yeah, it should be like a system: A-, F+, whatever.
Shut down, shut down. I mean, because guess what? It's one thing for you to do it yourself, and it's
Right.
another thing for you to do it and sell it to others. So we want to make sure, because lead, it really is detrimental to our children and our older population. I mean, we have to give our children the opportunity to grow, so we cannot allow lead to hinder them. I mean, there are lots of pollutants in our community, and there are a lot of things that we don't have control over. But with regards to this particular issue, there are ways for us to make sure that, you know, that this food is not contaminated, and if it is, have a way to deal with that.
All right. Now, Ms. Franklin, I know that you mentioned corner stores and how some of the produce is being sold there. Is there other issues with the corner stores that you've noticed, and if so, how would you address them?
Let me sit up for this. You know, our corner stores is probably like one on every block. And at the end of the day, the corner stores sell a lot of illegal drugs, paraphernalia. They are the supplier. They sell loose diapers, loose cigarettes. It doesn't matter. They got it. Now, you can walk into a corner store and you can get a crack kit. $3 for a crack kit. Glass pipe, glass pen, Choy Boy. They put it in a baggie for you and they give it to you. I've posted videos of this, and it's disgusting because our councilman knows about these things. They have meetings. They have these store licensing meetings, and there are a lot of store owners that's there that pretend like they do not sell any of these items on this list, and then I'll post it, I'll send it to you guys. Item 15 has everything in the making for a crack kit. So you think about the corner stores selling the vegetables, the corner stores cooking the food, the corner stores selling crack kits and other paraphernalia to a community that they're just holding hostage and just trying to keep in bondage. Like, this is really a disgusting topic for me because I take it very personal how our community is treated by the very people that we put into office to help us. And then we're led blindly to believe that they're actually doing their job because they're in partnership with the people that's holding us in bondage with all this mess that they have in these stores. It's like our elderly, our disabled don't have transportation to get to grocery stores, so they don't have a choice but to go to the corner stores. And it's just not, this is not how business as usual needs to be in our community. They don't go to other communities and do this. Now, we know that these people that have the stores, they've locked down Lackawanna, they've locked down Detroit, so now they want to lock down Buffalo. And we have to cut it out. We have to stop it.
I hear that. All right, I know you have a lot of statistics. I had another question for you, but before we move on to that, did you want to speak more on the specifics dealing with the Brownfields and the urban gardens? Or should I ask you this next question?
Well, I'll go back to the Brownfields just to note that a lot of our affordable, or should I say low-income housing, is being relegated to Brownfields as well, which is problematic because toxic is toxic. You remediating it or taking it down to levels where it might be low when you first test, and then 5 years later it's just as contaminated. That it's very problematic because we have a government that has made limits to how much we can be poisoned. I mean, the government understands that no amount of lead is safe, but they've determined in New York State that you can have 400 parts per meter in soil, where in California it's only 80. So what we have is second-rate cleanups, and then they're making poor brown and black people eat and live in and on toxic dirt. And I will tell you that we have got to understand this because look at Lovejoy. you have several generations where their family no longer is alive because every generation of their family has been impacted by cancer. So these are things that we definitely have to address. They're not making condos on brownfields. So what works for them needs to work for us, and it's more of us than there are of them. And that is why this is a political issue, because in order to get anything addressed, we have got to regulate it. And that's why, we have to know and understand what a brownfield is and the negative risk involved, so that we as a community can stand as one when it comes down to that. We shouldn't have to choose between, do I live on toxic waste or am I homeless?
Right, I hear that. Okay, so alternatives. When we look at the disparities with the corner stores, and as well as the urban gardens and the produce that they may be selling there, what would be the alternatives? What other things can we offer as an alternative? If we were to take those things away, what would we put in those places?
Well, one of the first things I want to do is I want to try to open up a grocery store for us on the east side, letting it be like Whole Foods type of thing, where we can just get everything fresh. We can get our herbs, we can get our vegetables, we can just have everything that we need. That's first and foremost. I want to eliminate the corner stores and replace it with the grocery stores. I want it to be accessible to the elderly and disabled. I want it to be some type of transportation that can get them back and forth. So, that's my alternative to this issue. I want the corner stores gone. They're irrelevant.
Okay. Same thing. What would be our alternatives for the different stores in our community, as well as the way the urban gardens have been laid out?
Well, the way that they're laid out now is we have too many people who are outside of our community dictating what we eat, how we eat, and where that food comes from. What we need to do at this point is, if we have to collectively utilize transportation through like an elder care program where we identify elders in the community and we get them transportation to and from, or if we start having like our own, where a flea market, where we are going to the farm and getting that food ourselves and bringing it in on a weekly basis so that we have access. What we cannot do is allow them to be our only access to this. And we're not at the table having the discussion. It really blows my mind how people are very upset that, we don't want to just go with the flow. And, I'm all for whatever is for the community, but we have got to be educated, because when you are educated, you are fit to be a slave to somebody else's agenda. And their agenda is monetary, how it benefits them. They don't care if you get sick. If you get sick, then guess what? These same companies probably are, we know they're tied in, because Kaleida is tied into a lot of these urban gardenings, Kaleida and Cornell Extension. So what we have is, a whole system that they're controlling all of the information, all of the testing. They're in it with these politicians because there's money in repurposing brownfields, but they're repurposing brownfields for us because they know the health risk. And if there were no health risk about it, then you would see these urban gardens everywhere. You can't just go in Kenmore and start urban gardening. You just can't go in Cheektowaga and say, I'm about to put a farm here. These people are coming here, slow rolling through our community, deciding what they feel is suitable. They don't care about the history of, they're not doing their homework. All they're thinking about is them. So, as long as we're working collectively, we can do the transportation, we can bring the food in, take the food to the people, but what we cannot do is just sit idly by as these people come and do what they want, when they want, how they want in our community at our detriment.
Well said. Okay, so in closing, do you have any closing remarks dealing with your campaign, specifically dealing with urban gardens, and maybe a specific word to your constituents that will be voting for you soon?
Okay. You know, when I decided to run for University District, it's because, you know, you see a lot of injustices that happen over there. You see a lot of things that we are lacking, and then you see poor leadership. One thing that I do want to do is be very transparent. You know, I want to hold government accountable for everything that's being done. The community centers that's over there need to be free for the children. There needs to be grants or other programs, not just basketball and football, but you tap on people's talents. You tap on what they like to do. Give them some kind of skills. I was taught how to crochet when I was little. Maybe they like to crochet. Maybe they want to know how to sew to become a designer. You never know, but we need to tap into different things for our children, because our children is what is going to help us when we get older. That's one thing. The other thing, of course, I want to eliminate the corner stores. I think that they are toxic to our society, and they need to be removed. There's other things I want to do, but it's too long of a list.
We appreciate that, sister. All right, Sister Simmons. In closing, what would be your your last statements to your constituency dealing with urban gardens and your campaign?
Well, I want to say this. I've been working with the community, in the community, with the leadership here and of the past, and the greatest opposition to anything that the community that the community wants to do now, in the future, and in the past, the biggest opponent to the community has always been the leadership. And then I found out that they work for us, and I'm like, what? So now that I know that they work for us and they haven't been working for us, I signed myself up for the job, because we need to deliver the government back to the people. That's the only way that we are going to address the conditions in our community. It goes from the top down. We have to be involved in every aspect. We have to be at the table. Forget the table. The meetings need to take place in our house. So with that being said, we need leadership that is rooted in the community, that has been fighting for the community, that identifies with the community, and that wants to listen. I mean, at this point, we have a government that counts us out, disenfranchises us, and they don't want to listen. And we can do that when we go to the polls and we vote. And we vote for leadership that has been around, that has been dedicated to the community. Because without community, there is no me, there's no us. So we have to collectively make it together.
All right. And on that note, we would like to close. This has been Black Press Box. We would like to thank our candidates for the upcoming council elections. And remember that we've always invited all the candidates for the upcoming Buffalo elections. We would like to give this opportunity to have the candidates respond to some direct questions from the constituency that they'll be representing if elected. So again, to all that are listening, when we do this again, we hope that we'll have more of the upcoming candidacy that will be representing the Black community here in Buffalo. So with that, I'd like to say unification is a must, and race first. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
That's right.